Hello, I'm Lauren, and welcome to Improving the World. I'm an international improviser based in Hong Kong, and I speak to amazing improv women all over the world. Today being no different, I am talking to Ashley Comeau, based out of Toronto, Canada, and we're looking at when improv goes international at festivals, when you're teaching, coaching, jamming, and so on, being thoughtful of language, location, different audiences, and also the learnings that she has had, different stories and tales she shares, but this idea of conscientiousness and making sure one is not appropriating when on stage, that's both for at home and overseas, but those learnings that come with the internationalism that you gain over time. Now then, have you subscribed to Improving the World? It would honor me greatly if you would do so and help me out. Off to Ashley now. I hope that you enjoy. So we are talking today about when one goes overseas to do improv, whether it's to teach, perform, or generally jam, and how you learn through that. You connect with different audiences, different peoples and cultures and geographies. So we're in this boat trip to somewhere cool.
Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
We're in a motherfucking boat. Sorry.
So you do all of the things, writing, coaching, improv, and acting, put you up in a stage space and you're cozy and at home. Therefore, put you in a stage space internationally and you're also cozy and at home.
Yes, very much so. I love it.
Very nice. So let's start off easy. So you're at home in Toronto and then I pluck you out and I put you in Timbuktu. How is improv different when you're somewhere else?
I would say I have the privilege of living in Toronto, Canada, which is very multicultural. As time passes, the stages are just getting more and more diverse with amazing voices and stories from all over Canada and the world. I'm very privileged where I live. It's really awesome. And then when I travel, I get to see different stories, different journeys, ways of storytelling and political climates, different inside jokes and cultural references. It's quite enlightening and wonderful and helps you grow as a person.
The first thing that you said about Toronto was the diversity that is growing and happening there where you are. Do you find that that's the same overseas? Is the global improv scene also becoming more diverse? Or do you find that when you are in other places that it's a little bit more secular?
Well, firstly, I just want to correct myself. Toronto is great, but can do much better.
Yeah.
It's pretty white, it's pretty male, and Toronto itself doesn't always reflect white maleness. So the stages are getting better because the conversations are happening. I would say when I travel, especially for international festivals, I do have a privilege of seeing different countries and ages and genders, sexualities, and all that kind of stuff. And for everyone, including Toronto, who isn't doing that, you better wake up soon. You better change your way.
Yeah. Try harder, all of the people.
Harder.
Do better. Yeah. You mentioned a little bit about learning when you go to these other places. I think that it's fabulous when you're at a festival. Okay, so you have the different improv groups who potentially have come from all over the globe, and maybe you just interact with them having a coffee or something, or maybe you're on stage with them or jamming or something. So that's pretty cool. And then you have the audiences, and depending on the festival, you have either a selection of people from that place. So you're in Sweden, you have a bunch of Swedes, or you're in Sweden and it's an international festival. So you have like Sweden plus all the places. So you've got this diversity of the performers and the audience. Tell me about the learning that happens. You referenced that. Where are you learning in this international landscape?
I'm learning on many levels. I would say one thing is what's funny in North America doesn't always translate in Europe or Africa. Humor is humor. And when you can access the human condition, it doesn't matter where you are. So when you can find that, people talk about truth in improv, I would argue it's like more just truth in your own humanity. That's what's funny. So in order to get to that truth, a lot of people will drop in references to TV shows, or sometimes it's how you eat is different. I remember I co-produced and co-founded the Mamacity Improv Festival in Cape Town, South Africa with Eva Gilliam. And we did a really cool jam with Canadians and South Africans. It was a mixer. And I remember Alistair, who's in my troupe, Canadian, we were driving, we were a couple who was lost in a car. And all of a sudden you hear, whoop, whoop. A South African comes out. His name is Pags. He's an incredible performer. And we're like, sorry, were we going too fast? We're just a little lost. And he's like, give me your car. As Canadians, we were thinking, oh, wow, what a bold choice. That's friggin' hilarious. And the audience is losing their minds. And we have no idea that sadly, there are often times in Cape Town where police won't be real police. There'll be people pretending to be police and they're looking to take your car. And so we just played these two bumbling white tourists who were like, no, that doesn't work for us. And the audience was losing their mind because they were witnessing their truth through the ignorance of a foreigner and a white foreigner. It was really fun to legitimately be ignorant in that moment and get to play the heel.
I do love when you see someone in that moment, because I've been that person and I've watched that person, and you're like, this is the reality, right? Oh, I totally, like, Lauren didn't get the reality, not just my character. Lauren didn't get it. Now let my character catch up.
Oh, I have no idea what's going on. I am strong and wrong sometimes when it comes to musical notes in musical improv, or where I'm like, oh, this harmony, that wasn't the harmony, or words meaning what I think they mean. Mm-hmm. There was one time what I meant to say was this incessant waiting for the bus. And this character was so frustrated. And I just went, oh, this incestuous waiting for the bus. And the audience is like losing their minds. And I have no idea why. I have no idea why. Just a gift from God, just ignorant.
I like that, strong and wrong. So you were talking about this other player that you were in the car and the cop pulls you over and you're learning, and it was a moment where you were learning about the culture and something that happens there. And how does the audience teach you? I mean, obviously they're part of that through their laughter and their reaction. They're showing you and sort of pulling you through a journey a little bit, but how does the audience teach you as well?
Oh, well, I looked into Alistair's eyes and he also didn't know what the fuck was going on. And so I'm like, oh, okay. We're up Schitt's Creek without a paddle here. All right, let's lean in. Let's refuse to give the car up, because that's what we would do in Canada, because we have the privilege of being able to do that. Through their responses, it was kind of what I imagine Aikido to be. You're kind of moving as one together. They're telling you, no, it isn't about the license and registration. It's about stealing the car. And you're like, oh, okay, get away from that. I'm not one to chase the laugh normally, but in this moment, I was so lost contextually. It was through them. It was a dance, and they let me step on their feet, and then they stepped on mine, and it was so much fun.
That's a nice analogy. I like that. Yeah. And I know what you mean, because it's a clear communication that the audience is giving you. They're making reaction through that. If you're hearing and you're really listening to them, you're understanding where to go. It's like you're, I don't know, trying to get through a maze or something, and there's this like blobby voice around you. And if you can, hear like Charlie Brown's Principal, womp womp, if you can figure out the tonality, you can kind of navigate through, right? Yeah.
Yes. It was such a gift. So the Mamacity Improv Festival is a co-production between South Africa and Canada for the sesquicentennial anniversary of like settler Canada. There was some funding that could be given. So we got a little bit of funding to do a sesquicentennial show. The format was we would show Capetonians a Canadian commercial, or like the Toronto Blue Jays winning the sport thing that they win in baseball, the sport thing.
Yeah.
And they would use that as inspiration, and then they would show a song or something, and we would use that as inspiration. It was really cool to learn just about staples, I would say from 16 through to 50-year-old South Africans, and same for Canadians too. It's awesome to learn, to grow, and to not know.
So I'm coming back to the car story again. That was a real thing that happens to people there, but I think that also speaks to the politics of what's going on, right? Because you said that you live in a place where you're privileged that your car wouldn't be stolen, one would hope, by a police person. So the fact that that's happening in SA speaks to a little bit more than just the stage, right? It's about the real life and the government and crime and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Do you feel when you're traveling and you're performing and playing and learning in all these different places that there is an element of caution that you have to take? Or do you think that it's better to just kind of jump in and deal with that lack of understanding and learn through the moment?
That's a great question. I'm not trying to, set up a game of the scene here. I genuinely think that too is a dance. I've never had the privilege of performing in Zimbabwe, but I'm a queer woman and I couldn't express that on stage. Whereas in South Africa and Toronto and Boston and England and wherever, I can be my authentic self and have partners of any gender or identity in scenes. Whereas in Zimbabwe, I wouldn't even think about it. So there is a respect. This is tricky because it's political. I don't agree with that way of being, of shutting somebody out based on who they love. However, if I was in the position where I was performing there, I wouldn't go out of my way to have that kind of settler mentality of like, well, you have to deal with it. I'm not wearing a headscarf, or I'm queer. fuck you. I would be respectful of where I am and gracious that I'm allowed to go in and learn, even if it's so far from my identity or what I believe. It's about learning and trying to communicate. So I wouldn't come tits akimbo going like, this is what a bisexual looks like, and kiss women, consensually, of course, on stage.
The fact that you said tits akimbo akin with a lesbian reference was just beautiful.
Thank you so much.
The visual was gorgeous.
But at the same time, it's finding that truth in humanity. So if that particular city or stage isn't talking about these things, finding the delicate balance of being authentic to myself without disrespecting where I've gone to.
Yeah, that's what I wonder about. Because you have to understand enough of what's going on in the place to, one would hope, not be hurtful. Additionally, you are who you are. And I think that there's an interesting thing too about being the international person. You sometimes have a little bit more leeway because you don't know, and so they give you a little bit more breadth to kind of make mistakes. Maybe there's a play to be had there where you use that little bit of allowance that you have to do some of the authenticity that you speak about, which otherwise might not get broached. Is that a touchy thing to do? Is that something that you have to be really delicate with potentially? And then you have to do that maybe while you're being live with an audience and improvising. So yeah, fragile tightrope walk, isn't it?
Yeah, all while being authentically present for your audience and for yourself to enjoy it. In my opinion, that's how I enjoy things. I will say that with the exception of the deep south of the United States, where I wasn't doing improv, I was doing a musical, so it was a bit different. I was talked to very sexistly. This was just one experience. I'm not saying the whole state's like this or nothing like that, but it was really interesting. I was like, oh, I wouldn't choose to do improv here. I would be way too in my head, not able to make anything funny, and probably not enjoy myself. That being said, I would welcome conversations with people who believed the certain things that were said to me in the musical setting. It's tricky and it's constantly changing, right? Sometimes I'm like, hard pass. Other times I'm like, let's sit down. Let's have this conversation. I don't agree with you. What is that Voltaire quote? Something to the effect of, I don't agree with what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. I'm allowed to say, no, thank you. I'm allowed to say what you're saying is wrong. I don't know if I would feel comfortable going to your house and doing that. When you travel, it's about respect and communication and honesty and educating yourself before you leave.
Yeah. And thank you for bringing Voltaire into this improv vlogcast. I do appreciate that. So you being in Canada, speak some of the French, question mark?
Un peu seulement, mais un peu, like a little bit. And it's really shameful because I'm French descent and Acadian, so I should speak way more. And my grandparents were completely bilingual, but it kind of stopped with my parents.
What did you say? French descent
and Acadian. So it's like East Coast French, comes from France, but it's East Coast. East Coast Canada is like the nicest people you'll ever meet. Think lobster and metropolitan mixed with small town energy in a city.
Do you think that lobsters are nice? Is that why you said nice and then you said lobsters? Do you think lobsters are like the lovers of the sea?
I mean, I don't want to flash you, but I do have a lobster tattoo. They mate for life. They're hard on the outside and soft on the inside. I love them.
Which is maybe why we shouldn't eat them. Just a PSA, if we love them, just saying. Okay, yeah. So moving forward from my food beliefs, now then, the loving lobster that you are with a little bit of French, when you go overseas and you improvise, now in Hong Kong and other places I've lived, there are many international people and they speak English better than I speak their language. So oftentimes they're improvising outside of their native language. What has your experience been with the language when you're doing international improv? Have you had to improvise in French, or if you speak other languages, or have you improvised with other people where they're outside of their language? And how does that work?
I did this really cool set with my husband and two members of the Royal Stage Monkeys out of Germany. One of the members is completely bilingual in English and German. One mostly German. We could have a beer in English, but the scenes are a bit more difficult. And then my husband and I both are fluent in English with un peu seulement French. And we did like a rotating kind of pan left or switch left, however you call it, where one was silent. So it was a silent scene, but then we switched, and then the other was completely Anglo, switched, the other was completely German, and then switched, and one was in German and one was in English. It wasn't the same scene or anything. It was like in an apartment building, but it was so cool because the audience knew what they knew. We were in rural Germany, where English was not really a priority. And that's great. Shouldn't be. And they were laughing for many reasons, right? They're laughing at us because we don't know German, that I'm saying things and doing things with my body to overcompensate, to try to understand what's going on. But then English has a lot of German words in it. So you kind of pick out some things. And then in the German scene, you have no idea what's going on and the audience is loving it. And the English scene, they don't know what's going on, and the silent scene. So it was transformative because through Second City, what I learned about improv was like the whole Viola Spolin thing, where she was using improv to teach immigrant children, I think in Chicago, to communicate with one another because they were all coming from like different countries, first gen, right? And so she was using these nonverbal games and something like this, where you can learn the concept of energy and you can evolve from it, but you get that sense of understanding. Not to sound wanky, but through improv, you are able to communicate with people even if you don't speak the language. I saw an amazing French set that I kind of understood, a Greek set that I didn't understand at all, but I felt it. I knew what was going on because they're great performers. So language, when it comes into international touring, it's a dance with a stranger. And there's that third time mention of that. And it's terrifying, but if you consensually trust each other and you are using the tenets of improv to support one another and make your partner look good, being others focused transcends language.
I'm obsessed. I've lost the ability to speak. I love this pan right left where you've got 4 different language setups, because I've played that game many different ways and I've done different international bilingual shows.
Yeah.
But I haven't played that, and I think that is genius. I also was thinking you could take it and convert it into a longer form or something where potentially you have panning or some way to commute you between places, and you could have multiple language setups happening and see how they weave together. Like,
yeah. Get a musical director in there to tell you when the scene is over, and you explore the same room through the ages and who all lived there.
I love that. Yeah. Okay. I need to go. We need a rehearsal now. I need to go talk to my people. I love that. Penultimate question, my second to last question. This is a juicy one, and this is referencing all the things that we've talked about. So you're in different places, and dun, 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 the portrayal of people in places that you go. You go to South Africa, you have knowledge of South Africa based upon what it is that you experience. Mm-hmm. What can you portray on stage? What are you comfortable with? What do you suggest for others? You are in Toronto, you have whatever life experiences you have, whatever you carry on your shoulders in terms of age, your gender, your religion, your experiences, your whatever, your color, the way you look, things like that. What can you portray? And does that shift and change for where you are? That was a wordy question. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I think it's an important one, and I will preface it with, for me currently in my journey with my travels, which it's COVID time currently when we're filming this, so travel's not happening, but with my travels also inward of like my white fragility, my part in racism, my part in, homophobia before I came out, my part in all of this, for me, it's always changing because there's so much that I don't know. This is going to be a lifetime thing for me and hopefully others. So I grew up in a suburb of Toronto that has a high Southeast Asian community. Although I am not Desi or brown, or do I speak fluent Urdu or Hindu? No, but I grew up around it and was involved in it. I had the privilege of witnessing the culture, but it was not mine. Even into my 20s on stage, not in stereotypical hurtful ways, I was doing a Pakistani or an Indian accent, and I didn't see anything wrong with that. Cut to learning that I am the oppressor for that group of people based on my skin color. Holy shit. If I had known that, I never would have done it. Even though I was welcomed into the culture, it is not mine. I feel a strong tie to it and I have such love for it. Oh, fuck. Like that was my entire 20s. I would use it as much as I use the Irish accent or English accent or anything like this. And not for a laugh of doing stereotypes, but as an homage to people who raised me on my street, to people who I have strong friendships and relationships with. Cut to learning that culturally, I am the oppressor to that group. And I'm straight passing. I married a man. So I have to preface like, I'm a queer woman before I play a lesbian on stage. I think it's complicated because regionally it is different. Nationally it is different. Where I'm at right now, I would say Eurocentric accents, I have no qualms doing it. I can look Greek, I can look Russian. I'm Eurocentric. I'm like a settler skin tone and hair coloring. When it comes to religion, if I'm endowed as something, I'll play it to the highest level of my intelligence, or I'll just play who I am in it. Like if you put me in a mosque or a Muslim performer puts me in a mosque, I'm not going to try to pretend like I'm Muslim. I'm going to play the ignorant person because I am. So I would say, as a white person, if you look like what you're playing, that's great. But I think you run into dangerous territory. Like if I'm playing somebody with a disability or who is a person of color, even if that is authentic to my upbringing, it's taking away a spot from a Pakistani or Indian performer.
Explain that to people. What do you mean that you're taking a spot away? So that person's not literally on the stage with you. There's not someone on the stage who is a brown person, but you are on the stage, and that is an experience that you have. You grew up with this community and you know about it. Why would it be hurtful or taking away space from someone for you to perform that?
Because on a bigger picture, systemically, even though in my singular case, yes, I was welcomed into aspects of this culture, it is not mine. So instead of using a privilege that was given to me, on top of already the privilege of being white and straight passing and able-bodied and young, instead of not playing what I am or what I could be ancestrally or belief-wise, to take up the space and put the words even in a fantastical place. Right now, I'm really struggling with that. I don't think it's right for me to do. Sometimes I get a little like, ooh, my anus goes to the back of my throat when I see other people do it, because I'm like, ooh, this could be for a brown performer, where it would be maybe more authentic than me. I'm trying to be conscious, and it is a journey, and I'm not getting it right all the time. But I think it's important to use my privilege to hold up my elbows and be like, hey, this isn't right. I have to kind of dismantle the whiteness of improv by not stealing. I think it's dismantling whiteness as the top thing so that people aren't white have just as much space as I do.
It's complicated, and we could probably do a whole nother like 30 minutes on this. I'll just ask one more like sub question. What do you think about, I'll give you 2 examples. I'll give you 3, in fact. I got a friend who's a white male Muslim. Does he need to get up on stage and state his Muslimness to be able to own that and be it? I have a friend who is a white person who's from Hong Kong, who speaks some Canto, who grew up here. Does he need to state his Hong Kongness to be able to be a Hong Konger? And number 3, my partner is a white Scottish person, and the Scottish were the oppressed and the English were the oppressors for a very long time. And there was I don't know if anyone knows Scottish history, go check it out. Not just Braveheart, there's more. And he's like, my people took some knocks for quite a long time. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff there. He's like, I don't inherently own the oppressor only because of my color. I am also oppressed. So this is part of the discourse here. Unpack, go.
Unpack. Okay. I do think it's a case-by-case basis. Your white Muslim friend, that is his authentic truth. If he starts talking about his Muslim experience in a scene, or if he starts telling a story of what it's like to be a white Muslim or anything like that, that's his to say because it's his authentic experience. Mine was by proxy, and I am using that to get laughs, or I was, even though it was authentic and it came from love. People weren't laughing and connecting with me because they were like, oh, she was raised in Brampton. People on the street were really nice to her. She's been to Indian weddings and stuff. She wasn't a part of that community. They're not seeing that. They're like, oh, this white girl can do a really good auntie on stage.
And make fun. So now we're pointing at someone else and we're laughing together at them.
Exactly. And by my skin color, it looks like I'm punching down. I can turn it off. If I don't want to have an Indian or Pakistani accent and be not judged for that, someone who's brown can't turn it off, even if they don't even have the accent. People say abhorrent things in Canada and the US. And it's like, come on, they were born here. What are you even talking about? They're more Canadian than my family, but they can't turn it off because of the color of their skin. The second one was
someone who's white, who's from Hong Kong, or we have people who are all kinds of colors from Hong Kong.
Black, person of color, indigenous, anything. Again, that's their authentic experience. So they're from Hong Kong. For me, that's how I navigate that difference. And it could be wrong, but that's what I think to be true right now. I have to just preface this by saying I'm very new to unlearning my points of privilege.
Very beautifully stated. You're unlearning points of privilege. That's lovely.
Yeah, and recognizing I'm very new to that because I would often think, well, I grew up lower middle class, like poor. So I've suffered, right? Everybody suffered. That's pretty much the human experience. I've never suffered because of the color of my skin. And with the Scottish English thing, absolutely, the Scots have been oppressed by the Brits. A lot of people have been oppressed by the Brits. It doesn't make it right. It is a lot of pain and it is a lot of healing and suffering and healing that needs to happen. But arguably, it's never been about skin color. And I think for me, that's a huge one here. What I'm hearing out of Black and Indigenous people in Canada and people of color is like, yes, we've all suffered. They're not saying no one's suffered as much as them, or like I have rich Black friends and I'm poor. Like it's all different. But where the privilege lies is that it's never been because of skin color. So to take an accent or a story, if I told the creation story of Indigenous Canadians on stage, I know it pretty well. It is not mine to say. I've experienced sexism and homophobia and bi-erasure and sizeism, but I've never had to worry about going missing just because I'm an Indigenous woman in Canada, or dying behind the wheel of a car because I'm a Black man. And I can tell my own stories of suffering. I've got a lot of it. It's going to come out in improv no matter what. But I'm not going to, or no longer going to appropriate things in that way.
Yeah. And coming back to where we were, I think that when we're overseas or we're in an international setting, whether or not it's an international festival happening where it is that you live or happening somewhere else, there is another layer. So if you're trying to be conscious and conscientious, then you are hopefully accomplishing that with the layers of noticing your sea of faces around you and what's going on. So it's more than just whatever your home awareness is. Your improv passport is in your hands. So you've also got that to think about.
That's exactly it. And you want to punch up with your comedy, even though you might be doing it from a generous, good-hearted place. If you look like the bad guy in the majority of that culture's stories, you're punching down.
Right. Ashley, words of wisdom, please. It has come to that time. So if you could speak to the younger version of you, your improv community here, afar, in the boat, outside the boat, if you could speak to the creeper on the internet at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. even, who is someone awake at 4? Go to bed, watch this, and then go to bed.
You live your truth, but go to bed.
Yeah, put the Red Bull down, time to go. What do you want people to know? What are your words of wisdom?
To the creeper on the internet, I'm just going to say, don't be gross, don't be rude. And just like a follow-up to them, who hurt you? Why?
Oh.
Who hurt you?
Yeah. We love you.
I mean,
the base layer, the original layer of you. Yeah.
As a human and a child of the universe, I love that.
Yeah.
It's whatever the fuck this is if you're calling people horrible things on the internet. You know, just don't. And I hope I get lots of like, fuck you, bitch, based off that. I'll put one. I would say to the improv community and my former self, it's kind of the same. Be kind. And remember, she says after slamming someone she doesn't know on the internet, be kind. And there is a place for you. There is. Non-negotiable. There is a place for you if you're not gross.
Yeah, if you're not gross. If you're not a creeper, we got space. All right. Well, thank you so very much, Ashley. I really appreciate your time and your energy, all your kind thoughts that you shared. And thank you for blowing my mind with my language options for pan, right, left.
I hope you have a great time playing it. Thank you for what you're doing, for amplifying female identifying voices and for connecting people all over the world. This is really fucking cool.
Thank you so very much. Amazing having you. Thank you for saying that. And to all of you out there creeping and not, this is Improving the World. I'm Lauren, and there's more where that came from. Bye. Mwah. So, did you love the video? If you did, please say kind and wonderful things in the comments down below. I would love it if you'd subscribe and look for more Improving the World. Thanks.